Well, howdy. Let's try again. Howdy. All right, that's a little bit better. Well, welcome, students that are in the classroom back to campus, or if you're here for the first time, welcome to Aggieland. We do have a few people attending remotely today. Some of those are students, and some of them are working from remote, and so that's the way they're going to be attending this semester. Others have special permission to attend remotely today. And then we've also invited some other folks, some colleagues and friends of the department as well, since I'm going to be talking about the department today. So this will be the beginning of the semester, and we'll kind of do a quick review of the past year, some successes and some other things that we're looking forward to in the department for the coming year and in the next several years. And we won't spend a lot of time talking about this class today. We will use Canvas for that conversation and make sure that everybody understands the requirements for your grades and other things for the semester. I will point out, though, before we begin, that that this is the schedule for the fall. We have 2 days where we won't be meeting, 2 Thursdays. Those are highlighted in yellow there. The first one is our annual Biomedical Engineering Society meeting in the middle of October, beginning of October. And many of our faculty and students will be attending that either in person or remote. And so we won't be meeting in our class that day. Also, obviously, we won't be meeting for Thanksgiving. I will also point out that that last date there, December 7, is a Tuesday, and that seminar meeting will be at noon. That's because Dr. Alisiev is going to be speaking also to our medical school through their grand rounds. So it'll be a slightly different schedule, and of course I'll keep you informed on that. But what you can see from this is that we have an outstanding schedule of speakers. We'll start the semester next week with Dr. Cote with his 30-year anniversary celebration. And he's going to talk some about his research, but also a look back at his career and hopefully give us some words of wisdom. We also have a few more local people for the next couple weeks, and hopefully that means we will get past the worst of any kind of spike in the COVID coronavirus issues here, and we will be able to have all these other people visit us in person throughout the semester. And you can see they're coming from all over the country. And you can see it's also quite a diverse group in terms of their backgrounds, the topics that they will be speaking to us on. So we're very excited about that. And I will also note quickly that we have 3 people on this list for the fall with the DL listed next to their name. Those are our distinguished lecturers, so they're very special guests. We have a special way of hosting them, and we will advertise broadly for them as well. We're really excited about having 3 members of the National Academies joining us this fall. So let's talk about the department for a couple minutes here to give you an understanding of the state of the department. This is not just for graduate students. We will talk some about the undergraduate program as well. And obviously there's a lot of overlap in the things that we do between the 2 programs. To start with, our research is really at an all-time high. Right? We exceeded $23 million in research expenditures in the past fiscal year, which, just so you know, our fiscal year runs from September 1 to August 31st. So it just ended, and those numbers there are what I was given for August 31st, but there are probably some additional expenses coming in, and they'll be added as they close out the year. So that's our number, and it's very exciting to see how much investment that we've made in research and that we've gotten help from the federal government, from private industry and other sources to support our faculty and our students to pursue cutting edge research. Now, the research that we do is focused in these 4 areas right now: imaging technologies, medical devices, regenerative medicine, which is really what we call our biomaterials and tissue engineering groups, and then sensing and monitoring systems. And we focus primarily on the 3 big chronic diseases: diabetes, cancer, and cardiovascular disease. But we also have an emphasis on global health, and we have a Center for Remote Health that Dr. Cote runs. And you're going to hear some more about that next week. We also have, as part of the department, a leader in a pediatric devices consortium. We are the engineering lead for this research group that is clinically based at Texas Children's Hospital in Houston, and involves people from Texas A&M and Rice and others in the Southwest region. So that's very exciting, and a number of the projects that our students work on are supported by that Pediatric Devices Consortium. They're developing devices to help children that need it. And it's very, very rewarding type of work. As you know, you're in the Emerging Technologies building. This is the building that we share with industrial and multidisciplinary engineering. The majority of the research space in this building belongs to biomedical engineering. And it's, as of this past summer, 10 years old. It still looks very nice, and the labs are quite modern and well outfitted for what we do, although we're kind of outgrowing it, as you'll see. So as of this fall, we have 25 tenured and tenure track research faculty. There are a couple asterisks there, which I'll explain in a moment, but you can see the breakdown in terms of rank for our tenure track faculty. We also have what we call academic professional track faculty that include professors of practice, professors of instruction, and lecturers. And then we also have now over 25 courtesy appointed faculty. And those are faculty in other departments on campus, as well as adjunct faculty that join us from private industry, from clinical facilities. So they bring additional kind of expertise and mentorship to our students. So we're very excited to continue to grow that, bring in other people that want to help our students learn and our faculty and our students do research. Now you can see from the pie chart there where our PhD graduates are going. The majority of them are still going into industry, private industry. A fair number do go into academic careers, either in the tenure track, postdocs, or non-tenure track teaching positions. And then we have some that have gone to FDA and other national labs, and others have gone into other areas. So in terms of numbers, what you see down there is our projected fall enrollment. These are the current numbers. We won't know for the 12th class a day what the actual numbers are. But what's very exciting to us is that our undergraduate numbers have basically held steady, meaning we've reached a point where we're very happy with the size of the undergraduate program, but we're trying to grow the graduate program. And so this 183 graduate students is one of the largest numbers we've had. We have quite a few coming in this fall, as you'll see, and many of you are included in that group. So we're very excited about that. And also not just the numbers, but the diversity is appealing in the sense that we've got a good mixture of types of people, backgrounds, ideas that we want to bring together to solve problems the best way. And you can see there also that in the past academic year, the numbers of graduates that we had are approaching some of the largest in the country. I think as of last year, we were graduating about the 6th greatest number of undergraduate biomedical engineers in the country. So we've grown to be one of the larger departments at the undergraduate level, and now we're trying to move toward growing our graduate program. As we've grown our faculty, we can expand that graduate program. Now, a little bit more about the undergraduate aspects of the department. We do, at the undergraduate level, have a core curriculum. So our freshmen come in as engineers, and they go through a common set of courses as freshmen. Then they join a department through a process that we call entry to a major. That happens at the end of their first year. And once they join the department, we're giving them that broad biomedical engineering foundation that we need them to have. Their junior and senior years, they are then taking classes that are more specialized. They will choose one of these 4 tracks that you see here in the middle: instrumentation, materials, mechanics, and cell and molecular engineering. And then they will take a series of courses, I guess it's 13 hours. Most of those tracks have a lab associated with them. And that gives those students a little bit more depth and prepares them for careers in one of those tracks which are all quite well aligned with industry, right? So our industry partners, people that hire our students, that bring them in for internships and things like that, are well aware of what our students are capable of doing. And I don't have a slide that talks about this, but we do have a scientific advisory board and technical advisory board that helps us evaluate our programs, and that includes a lot of people that hire our students. So we constantly get feedback from them about what do our students need to have to work effectively in their companies. And you can see now our bachelor's graduates are going about a third each into industry, graduate school, and medical school. This has come back to where we had traditionally seen this for a long time, but over the past few years, we had seen the numbers to industry grow to almost 50% for a while. So we're happy to support our students that want to go in any of these directions, and we believe we prepare them well for whatever their aspirations are. Now, that's kind of the state of the department in terms of faculty and student and numbers. Let's talk about some of the things that have occurred over the past year that are very exciting. So I already mentioned that our research expenditures were over $23 million. That actually year over year was a 70% increase. So that is a result of some big grants and large number of grants that were awarded over the past year. And this is partly because we've got very active faculty that are somewhat early in their careers and they're having early success, and large numbers of them. So that's adding to some pretty large grant wins that, you know, it's going to be hard to reproduce that kind of increase year over year. But if we can maintain those kind of expenditures, that'll be pretty exciting. And I will say that, you know, those numbers from last year, we were winning. We won over $21 million in awards in the past fiscal year. So those will be things that are converted into expenditures over the next 3-4 years in most cases. Now, that was last year, but you know, it was a big increase, but it's still the 5th consecutive year of growth. And you're going to see some charts later on where we'll show what those numbers look like. Now, obviously, it's a big spike there at the end. But we continue to grow, and again, that's partly because we've had a focus on bringing on excellent faculty and growing that graduate program that are really emphasizing the research enterprise. Now, over last year, some of those excellent faculty that we brought in were mid-career faculty. They weren't the early stage outstanding faculty that we've been hiring for, you know, the 4 years prior to that, but these are people that had a track record, that had some experience, in some cases very experienced. And one of them was brought in with a special grant from the state of Texas called the CPRIT Established Investigator Grant. CPRIT, as you can see over there, is the Cancer Prevention Institute of Texas. Texas has decided to invest a lot of money in cancer research. And one of the ways they do that is they help universities to recruit excellent researchers to come to Texas. So we use that mechanism to help convince someone to join us. That was Dr. Tamailele. And that brought in $5 million for him to establish his lab. He actually has a lab in College Station and a lab in Houston in the medical center. And so some of his students are actually attending seminar from remote because they're working in the medical center most of the time. So we're very excited he's with us. We also, over the past year, successfully recruited 2 more junior faculty to join us. Now, this is a partnership with the College of Engineering where they gave us positions, or they gave positions actually to college entities. The first one being the Center for Remote Health Technologies and Systems, CRHTS. That is what you're going to hear about next week from Dr. Cote. That's his center. And they had a search for a faculty member to join in the area of global health. And it turns out that the one that was top rated among the candidates chose biomedical engineering as her home. So you're going to see who that is in just a moment. The engineering medicine program, as I'm sure you've also heard about, is our new medical school partnership with engineering, where students get a master's degree in engineering along with their MD degree. they had a faculty position. 2 of them actually were allocated to biomedical engineering. So we managed to hire 1 person to join us in our department starting in January. So you'll learn about him in a moment. And in fact, I was able to get another $2 million from CPRIT to recruit him to join us. So CPRIT, over the past year has helped us quite a bit in bringing outstanding new faculty to join us. The other thing that's going on, in addition to these, let's say, permanent faculty that we're hiring, we also contracted with 2 outstanding women researchers to join us on a temporary basis. They're like visiting faculty. And they're doing that through what's A&M has the Hagler Institute of Advanced Studies. That's what brings them here. And they have to meet very high bars to even be considered to join that program. So Jennifer Lewis of Harvard is the distinguished lecturer for our department. She actually gave us a talk in the spring. If you were here last spring, she gave one of our seminars. And hopefully we will have her back again this coming year to do some more workshops and seminars and talk about her expertise in material science applications in biomedicine. The second Hagler Fellow, unfortunately, even though I know who it is and it's official, I can't announce it until the university does a press release, and that won't happen until September 28th. So at the end of the month, I'll tell you who this other person is. Also very exciting opportunity to engage with world leaders, really, in research. And this is someone that is well aligned, again, with our research programs and wants to work with our faculty and our students. So some of you may have a chance to work with these outstanding research leaders. The other things that we've done over the past year in terms of activity that we feel are important accomplishments include looking at our curriculum. Now, we haven't made drastic changes to the curriculum yet, but we're in the process of evaluating that and making some decisions about that for the next couple of years. But what we did do, and this is pretty important for our undergraduates, but it also applies to our graduate students, is we've been adding courses, adding new courses, right? We added 5 new courses for graduate students this past year, and we're continuing to encourage faculty to develop new content, recognizing that over the recent past, we've had kind of a limited inventory, if you will, of courses for students to take, especially if they did their bachelor's degree here. There wasn't a lot of diversity beyond that. So we're trying to expand that catalog as quickly as we can. And so we will continue to do that as quickly as possible. For undergrads, though, the other thing that we did is we started teaching our courses more frequently during the year. And that allows them to now take some time off, not in their training, but get away from campus and go do those co-ops or internships or study abroad experiences that are so important to their development, but do that in a way that doesn't set them back an entire year or almost an entire year. So last year alone, we offered 9 new sections of our undergraduate courses so they could get those in and not get behind. And so we'll continue to do that as best we can as long as our faculty numbers allow. The other thing that is going on for the department is we're making investments in facilities. One of the things that we've been focused on over the past year is putting together a home for our design courses, our home for all of the student work that goes on from the sophomore, junior, and senior level, where they come into the department and learn in the same classroom over and over again. Now that classroom, we call it a design studio, is being constructed at the other end of this building. So rooms 1005 and 1006. It used to be 2 rooms, now it's 1 large room. We renovated it, we've opened up the space, done the floors and the electrical, and we have the furniture, as you can see here, arriving in October. We also have a special virtual cadaver virtual anatomy table that will be installed in that room. That's actually supposed to arrive next week. And that will be accessible to graduate students on an as-needed basis. That may be beneficial to some of the things that you do. And you'll hear some more about that. But that's very exciting because, as you can see in this image here, it's allowing visual inspection of anatomical and physiological features. It has multiple cadavers. It allows you to zoom in and really see high-resolution structures. It allows you to import CAD drawings into it, so you can actually do some virtual prototyping and testing with these with this table. So we're really excited about what that will enable our students to do. Not only that, this is what medical schools use to teach anatomy and physiology in many cases now. So it's giving our undergraduates that want to go to medical school that early glimpse of what that will be like years down the road. Okay, so let me talk about our new faculty. I mentioned these folks already. On the left, we have those that are, well, it's not categorized in any particular way, I guess. So Dr. Travis Carroll, he will be Dr. Carroll. He is almost done. He is one of our current students that has decided he wants to go into an academic career. So he's going to join us as an assistant professor of instruction in the spring, in January, once he completes the requirements for his degree. And he's going to focus on engineering education, enhancing our curriculum, and also he will continue doing some MRI research. Dr. Hatice Koydemir is our new assistant professor. She's the one that's associated with the Center for Remote Health. She comes to us from UCLA, where she's been a research scientist and a postdoc for quite a few years now. She's been leading some research groups there with Professor Ozkan, who's very well known. And in fact, they've been partnering with us on a major grant that's run out of our remote health center. So she's a logical fit into our program here. And her background is in sensing and monitoring. So we're really excited for her to add to our nucleus of faculty in that area. Jason George is coming to us in January also as an assistant professor, tenure track. He did his PhD at Rice and an MD at Baylor College of Medicine. So he's got both of those degrees, those credentials, and that made him very attractive for the NMed program. His background in research is mostly in cancer immunology, a lot of computational modeling as well. And then Professor Montgomery will be joining us right away. He's going to be working for us part-time while he's still working at W.L. Gore, based in Arizona. So he is coming to us as a professor of practice, a visiting professor of practice. With that industry background, he has a lot of experience with medical device R&D, and he will primarily be working with our design courses, with the other design instructors. And the hope is that he will enjoy the experience, that he will perform well, and that we'll be able to bring him on at a larger percentage of his effort down the road. Last but not least, Dr. John Horn is coming back to us. He was a former student. He's been away for several years working in the Texas Medical Center. He is coming back to us also in a part-time lecturer role to teach some of our undergraduate biomechanics courses. And his background is in fact computational and experimental fluid dynamics. So he's a good fit to teach those courses in fluid mechanics. So there may be more I can tell you about that this semester. We have some other recruits that are also quite exciting, but the ink is not yet on the paper. So if and when those become final, I will happily tell you about those. But even without any new additions, we're really excited about those 5 new faculty joining us this year. All right, so that's the faculty, but we also have a lot of new students. Now, at the undergraduate level, as you can see the numbers there, and you can see the breakdown, we have 147 new students coming into the department this year, which is about the number we'd like to have every year. We'd like to be somewhere around 160 per year joining the department. So 147 in the fall, and then a few in the spring, on the order of 15. That'll put us right at that 160 number. That'll give us 480 total, which is a manageable size for the current faculty. On the graduate side, you can see that we had 106 students continuing in the program from the past few years, but 77 incoming students. This is, I believe, is our largest incoming class ever. The 34 PhD students is a very large number for us. But we've needed to do that because we've hired so many faculty, and our faculty are being successful. They're performing well. They have room in their labs for students. So we needed to bring in a larger cohort this fall. Also, our Masters of Engineering program has grown a bit as well. So we'd like to get that number up to about 50 in the near future, but we want to do that at a pace that we can handle with our instructors as well. So you can see the breakdown there, and we're going to be in growth mode for a few years, most likely, until we get to somewhere between 200 and 250 students at the graduate level. Now you can see how this has occurred over time. Roughly 5 or 6 years here are shown. I guess it's 7 total in terms of the numbers. And what you can see is that the numbers of students have risen pretty rapidly, or they rose very rapidly up to 2019, and then we've managed to hold that pretty steady. So these are the undergraduate numbers here. Most of the growth was there. We've managed to clamp down on that, if you will, and hold it steady over the past few years while we've started to grow our graduate student numbers. How does that relate to our faculty numbers, though? If you look here on the yellow and the black lines here, those are our faculty numbers. And well, we were pretty low a few years ago, about 20, as our student numbers were starting to grow, and that was putting a lot of strain on the class size, as you can imagine. So we really worked hard to bring in 5 more faculty, as you know, 2 more starting in the spring, plus more instructional faculty. So we're getting our faculty, student to faculty ratios down back into the range that we are seeing in our peers. And hopefully we can bring it down a little bit further, but in the end, we know that at least as long as we're in the competitive range, we can manage. You can see how that breaks down over time. Again, over the past 5, 6 years, we've managed to continually grow both tenure track and instructional or academic professional track faculty. Now, if we look at our graduate admissions, it's very interesting. Well, one is that we used to track things like GRE scores, and we don't do that anymore. It's not a priority in the application evaluation as of 2020 and 2021. And so we had small numbers of students that provide them. We don't include them anymore. You can see the breakdown over time. In terms of female and U.S. citizen and URM, it's pretty steady. In terms of numbers, applications went down from 2016 to 2021. Now, a lot of that has to do with the environment in the last couple of years, as you can imagine. But we were able to admit a much larger number. We needed to, because we needed to grow. So there's a good and the bad side to that. The good news is the application quality has been excellent. So we've been able to admit a high percentage of students that applied and get our admission numbers up. And consequently, we had 64 students actually join this fall compared to 29. So we've doubled the number of students coming into the department in 5 years. Again, we're going to be closing down on that, but we're going to grow for at least a few more years, most likely, as we continue to hire. You can see the breakdown of how the students are funded. The key number here is this one on the bottom. That is that all of our PhD students have some sort of funding. There are also funding opportunities for master's students through TAs. Those will come up throughout the year. There are not that many right now, but we're working on ways to do that. And we're working on some ideas for fellowships for Masters of Engineering students as well. Those are things that take time, but it is important to us to support our students. So we invest a lot of funds in our students to begin with. All of our PhD students are funded by the department. Our faculty provide research assistantships for almost half of our students. Others get TAs. And then there are a number of training grants and other types of fellowship opportunities where students are getting their funding. I think we kind of covered this on a previous slide, so I won't repeat the fact that still, even at the PhD level, the majority of our students go into industry. We do believe that because we have a translationally focused faculty, that our students are particularly well prepared for industrial R&D, perhaps compared to other universities that focus on training people to go more into academic careers. All right, and then at the undergraduate level, again, kind of doing a similar comparison in enrollment trends and graduation plans. I mentioned this earlier a few years ago. Most of our undergraduates were going into industry. Now it's back to about a third in each of the different directions there. Now, what's interesting is that as we mentioned, the students need to they need to select a track to specialize in, or sort of specialize in, at the undergraduate level. And if we look at those numbers, we've seen over the past 3 years, really, a change in the level of interest in the biomolecular and cellular engineering track, where actually now more of the students go into that track than any of the other 3, which were the original 3 tracks. So that's something we're paying attention to from a class management standpoint as well as an employment standpoint. We want to make sure that if the students are really interested in these areas, that we really can find jobs for them. So that's part of our engagement with our advisory board as well, to make sure that we're teaching students the things that they need to know, as well as putting them in positions to find those jobs when they graduate. And I guess the other part of this is that these tracks, we've done a better job of educating students about what they are and what they prepare them to do. And as a consequence, the number of students that aren't sure about what they want to do when they graduate, or when they graduate, they're unsure of what they're going to do. That number has come down a bit. So they're better informed about their options and choosing them. And then also, it seems that this past spring, there's a significant amount of recovery from 2020, as you'd imagine. May 2020 graduates were put in a really tough spot. Okay, so with that, I'm going to go through some charts that show some more of the trends, but I'm going to do this quickly because we've already covered some of the key elements of this. This is the activity of our faculty and our students in submitting proposals in terms of requests made to the federal government and other agencies and numbers. So you can see those trends are all up. These are the research expenditures. As I mentioned earlier, we hit an all-time high, a 70% increase of 23 million past year. But even before that, we were on a pretty linear growth trend. That's very exciting to see. This department is very aggressive and being quite successful in pursuing research. Again, we've had over $20 million of recent awards. That was 2 years in a row, on top of the 2018, which was the big center grant that we won from NSF. And what is really interesting as I look at these data is as I find the research awards that we won last year, that $21 million, more than half of it is federal funding. Whereas in previous years, about half of it was federal flow through, which means that our faculty were working on federal grants, but they were working on federal grants with other people. other universities that were serving as the primary award winners. So we weren't getting quite the degree of credit of leadership that we will be now, because our faculty are winning these grants as PIs. So that bodes well for the future and the reputation of our department. Similarly, our journal publications are up over the past few years. See, there was a bit of a dip there, and that was somewhat a consequence of what I talked about earlier, is that we hired a lot of junior faculty during that time period, and we had senior faculty depart for various reasons. And as a result, the rate of publication is lower when people are starting out earlier in their careers, and that takes time to build back up. So now we're on a very nice trajectory and would expect these numbers to continue to grow over the next several years. All right, lastly, I'll point out that, and these are numbers just, by the way, from last fiscal year, not the last 5 years. We had a number of our faculty win some or be recognized for some very impressive things. Those include being inspiring Black scientists, members of the National Academy of Inventors. We had 3 faculty in that category, including Dr. Maitland, who's a fellow. I mentioned the secret recruitment grant for Jason George and Tamai Lele. Also, Dr. Raghavan won a secret high-risk, high-reward grant. And we had a number of faculty win also some other prestigious grants, like Li Mei Tian won an NIH Trailblazer Award, and Dr. Walsh and Dr. Yakovlev were recognized by some societies for excellence in their research. We also had some student big wins, if you will. Two of our incoming students this year, Latifa and Elizabeth, are winners of the NSF Graduate Research Fellowships. And my student, TJ, has been around for a while. He's been an NSF Cheer FP winner, but he's also an entrepreneur. He's been working with Sling Health. Some of you may have heard of that. And he actually won this really outstanding award from the Texas Business Hall of Fame for his innovative leadership. So we're really excited for all these folks. Now, I mentioned our faculty are translationally focused in their research. Not everyone, but many of our faculty are working with trying to get their research work from the lab into the clinic or out into the market, as the case may be. Also, a lot of our undergraduates, as they do their design projects as seniors, and our Masters of Engineering students, as they do their design projects, are working with external partners. And some of those are medical device companies, as you see here. Some of them are clinical partners like Houston Methodist and Texas Children's and Texas Heart. I mentioned all those earlier, I believe. And then we have some grants that have been co-funded with UT Southwestern in Dallas. And then a number of these are either obviously major medical device companies, recognizable names like BD and Abbott and Medtronic, Boston Scientific, et cetera. But others are relatively small companies like Trilliant, which was now purchased by DJO. Trilliant was started by one of our former students about 15 years ago, I believe now. And they are funding research and design projects that are going on here. And our students are working on this. So that we really appreciate the opportunity to work with these folks. They bring that real world to what we're doing. Now, that's kind of where we've been and where we're at. And now we'll talk very quickly about where we're heading over the next year. So the fiscal year, remember, it just started yesterday, September 1st. That will take us through next August. Fiscal year 22 is now, right? We are, as a department, doing a strategic plan. We have one that's in place, but it's 5 years old. It's time to refresh it. And I've contracted with a member of the National Academy of Engineering to facilitate that for us. So he's spending time on campus with us. He came to our retreat a few weeks ago to kick that off. And we've got a lot of great ideas, really exciting things that we think we're going to be able to make priorities for the next 5 years. And you're going to hear more about that probably in May as we complete the plan. We are also, though, under external evaluation by our accrediting bodies, so ABET and the SACS accreditation board, which ABET reviews our undergraduate programs, SACS reviews our graduate programs. We get to do both of those this year. So lucky us. We're doing our mock review for ABET right now. Our real evaluation will be next fall, which is another reason why we're looking at our curriculum changes now, so that once we get approved and accredited for 6 years, that's when we would make changes. So we'd have time to make the changes and then assess them prior to our next review cycle. We also do our academic program review of our graduate programs in the spring. So that will happen in late February, early March. We'll have people come visit campus. They'll read our report. They'll come and talk to students and faculty and ask questions, and then provide feedback on how we can improve. I'm also making it a priority now to recruit some more faculty, senior people from industry and with research track records, to join us at more senior levels to help continue to grow our program and especially to mentor our excellent young faculty. And that includes adding especially some of these professors of instruction and professors of practice to add to those academic professional folks that we already have. That includes trying to hire another director for our Masters of Engineering program, as well as more faculty to support the design projects. And I already mentioned the curriculum revisions. So those are some priorities. The others here are let's say, a little bit different categorically. The first one is, I realize on a day-to-day basis that I work with some of the best people in the world, and I want to make sure that they're happy here, that they can thrive here. And that's not just our faculty; it's our students too. But the faculty, they benefit greatly from the outstanding students that we have. So it's a big team, and the department is here to support all of you. So a priority for the department, and especially this comes all the way to me at the top, is to support and develop and promote and keep our current outstanding faculty here. Right? Provide them with the resources they need to be really successful, and then let them go, stay out of their way. Right? Now, the other thing that we're trying to do, and this has been pretty well established in the department, is that we see our vet school as a prime resource, something that many of us use, but we don't feel like we've used it as much as we could or should. It's let's say, a diamond in the rough, if you will. They're outstanding on their own, but working together, we think we can be really, really strong. So a focus for the next year is to continue to build our relationship with them at high levels, the dean, their associate deans for research, and really get our faculty and their faculty talking about how can we work together at all levels, right? Research, teaching, service, everything, to do our jobs better, to help each other. Another thing that we realized is that all the things that I just told you, I was kind of bragging about the great things that have happened over the past year, and I think that's justified. We've had a lot of wonderful things happen, and all the signs are quite positive. But we don't always do a great job of telling people about that. So we might brag internally, but we don't brag enough externally. And there are right and wrong ways to do that, of course, but we recognize that we need to do better at communicating our success, because when I tell people about what's happening, what's going on, they're oftentimes surprised because we haven't done enough of advertising, marketing, or external communication to make people aware of the fantastic things that are going on here. So that's a priority for us. We'll be doing that with social media, with a number of different modes to get that word out there. And to some extent, that's going to impact these things on the bottom. So there's graduate rankings. We've always been in this range of like 25 to 40 all schools, and then somewhere around the mid to upper teens in the public schools. But if you look at the numbers, we are really should be a top 20 out of all schools. If you look at the numbers, that's where we should be. And that's, these rankings they're based on reputation. They're not based on numbers, right? They're based on peer evaluation, or peer assessment, in other words, peer opinion. And if we haven't done a good job of explaining what we're doing and how we're doing it, and they can't see that, then they're not going to rate us as excellent where we should be. So that's part of our job, is to fix that. Lastly, a high priority for this year is to get ready for next year. 2022 is the 20th anniversary of the Department of Biomedical Engineering at Texas A&M. It's also the 50th anniversary of the program that began to grant degrees in bioengineering back in 1972. Right, so it's a double anniversary, and we're going to have a big celebration. So we got to think about how to do that. Some of you might be interested in helping plan for that. We'd love to hear your ideas about what are the things that we can do here as in terms of events to celebrate together what's happened in the past and where we're heading. So we look forward to sharing our ideas, but we also would welcome student input on that. And we already have some students involved. We'd be glad to have more. More ideas is always better. Okay, lastly is just to look quickly at some upcoming events. We are going to have, weather and COVID permitting, a welcome back event in a couple weeks in the courtyard over here. So that'll be announced, and hopefully all of you will be able to attend that safely. We have a career fair this fall. You can see the details there. We will have our scholarship and awards banquet at the end of October. And our annual research symposium that we normally do in August, right before the beginning of the semester, we didn't do it this year. We chose to defer to next year because we did it in January this year, deferred from last year. So we kind of said, okay, there's only so much we can do, and let's give it a year, and we'll come back and have an outstanding ARS next year. And that's student planned, student run, student driven event that is all things biomedical engineering research. And lastly, as I mentioned, in early October, we won't be meeting in seminar because the Biomedical Engineering Society conference will be held that week. Our department will be taking a fair number of faculty and staff to visit in person. They will be giving presentations, as part of the conference, the technical part of the meeting, research posters, and also we have a booth to recruit future graduate students, hopefully, from among the attendees that are there. All right. Now we have a new activity that we're doing this year. We're going to have an art contest. This is to celebrate the fact that many of our students have talents well beyond solving differential equations, right, or SolidWorks. And we know that there are many different types of creativity. Art is one of them, and we would like to be able to showcase that for you. So we're going to have this contest. You can read the details here. The main key is that if you submit something and you are a winner, then you will get to have your art hung on the 5th floor of the building here in our office suite for everyone to see. And there'll be a little plaque that describes your art and all that. So here's some examples of student art in the past. Anyway, you'll get some more information about that later. Now, I'm going to conclude by pointing out that racial justice, equity, diversity, inclusion these have been really hot topics the last couple of years. These are things that we've talked a lot about in the faculty and among our students. Some of our student leaders have begun to meet with the faculty to discuss how can we do better in terms of our own approach to life and work, and how can we influence others through our outreach. So we came up with some basic commitments that we wanted to share. You should have seen these in email messages already, and it's on our website. But we want to be clear that we are not going to tolerate hate and racism in our department. And what we're going to try to do is take stock of where we currently are in terms of the climate in the department, understand that, and we need to know what are the experiences of our people, and then try to improve. And part of that is really working to build and maintain the culture that appreciates, expects, respects, and well, appreciates is there twice, because we want to appreciate the fact that diversity is really important. It's not diversity for diversity's sake. It's when you have diversity, you have better ideas. So that's what we want. And so we're going to be more intentional about promoting it in what we say, but also in the activities that we develop. You may or may not know this, but Texas A&M is one of the largest producers of underrepresented minority engineers in the country. Number one in producing Hispanic students, and number two in total minority undergraduates. And that's a secret that we keep too well. We shouldn't. People think of A&M as not diverse. It's not true. We're very diverse. We just maybe don't realize it. And we certainly don't share it enough. So these are things we did over the past year. We started a committee. We did a climate survey. For whatever reason, this link is white, so you can't see it, but there's actually a link right here to a website from our department that has the ready committee. So go to our website, you'll see it. We started some other things, including anonymous reporting, and we've begun to talk about these topics within our orientations and within our classes. We've also had panels and workshops and other things, and we'll continue to do that as the year goes on and as the years go on. So for this year, we plan to introduce some things to improve the graduate climate. And we want to increase communications by having a newsletter. So again, this is a faculty, student, and staff committee that will prepare a newsletter. And hopefully that will help us all be better educated and better prepared to work together in a diverse group. So with that, I'm going to stop